Hey, good morning to y'all. Morning. Glad y'all are out in this cold morning. Cold in this room a little bit today, but anyway, we'll carry on. I'm gonna warm up here. One of the questions that many times comes up anytime you're dealing with students are some issues related to legal responsibilities. What are you legally responsible for? What's the role of your license in their education, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought it beneficial to put a little bit of that information in the presentation, because I know as I was working with students in the clinical area before I became an instructor, I had some misunderstandings about how that all worked. But that was one of my primary areas of concern, was if they make a mistake, how's that going to impact my license, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that anything that we can know to help empower us to understand better our role will just be to everyone's benefit. The legal responsibilities that we have related to anything are outlined in several different documents. One is the Mississippi Nursing Practice Law, the Mississippi Board of Nursing Rules and Regulations, the policies, procedures, and our guidelines of the clinical agencies, the policies, procedures, and our guidelines of the schools of nursing, and then the clinical affiliation agreements between clinical agencies and schools of nursing. So all of these documents kind of guide or direct what we do in working with students. These are the documents that should guide your decision making related to what one can safely and legally allow students to do. And of course, as a nurse practicing in the state of Mississippi, we are to be familiar with our nursing practice law and also the rules and regulations which govern our nursing practice. The Mississippi Nursing Practice Law and the Board of Nursing Rules and Regulations address what is the accountability of the RN, the activities the RN may and shall do, exceptions to the provisions, and they define an approved school of nursing. They also define supervision, both direct and indirect. So a lot of our questions are answered in the law itself. Accountability of the RN. As a registered nurse practicing nursing in the state of Mississippi, one is held accountable for the quality of care given to patients. So you can't get away from that. As the nurse in charge of the client's care or patient's care, you are the one ultimately responsible for that care. And when I used to be in clinical with students, I always told the staff, you know, we're going to do what you need us to do, but you are ultimately responsible for this patient's care. So if you don't want us to do something, or something that we're going to do varies from what you want to do, you know, just let us know, because we have to make it very clear where that responsibility lies. This includes patient care provided by the RN, patient care provided by others under the supervision of the RN. So by law, by the nursing practice law, by the fact that you're employed by the agency as an RN and you're assigned to a patient or patients for care, that right there lays your legal responsibility to that client. Whether there's a student there, an LPN there, a nursing assistant, you cannot get away from that. The RN may, and in the law it says may, assign specific nursing duties to other qualified personnel, assign duties of administration of patient medications to other licensed nurses only. And one question that may come to mind here is, are students licensed nurses? No, they're not. Do students administer medications? Yes, they do. But there's an exception in the law that covers students, okay? Assign duties for giving patient treatments to licensed nurses and auxiliary workers based upon knowledge of their educational preparation and experience. And this kind of gets in that realm of delegation. And you can't just delegate everything out. You have to be very careful with where that's delegated. And also, delegation does not negate you of your accountability and responsibility for the delegated task. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. Then it says the RN shall. Now, may is a may. The shall is a shall. All right, the RN shall appraise the nursing care given by the licensed nursing staff and others under the licensee's direction and give guidance and assistance as needed. So it says that as the registered nurse, you shall do that. It doesn't matter who's giving the care, you or whoever, that's part of your responsibility. The RN shall be responsible for the clinical nursing record, which reflects the patient's nursing care and progress. The nurse may delegate any or all of the recording of care given and the observations made to assistants who rendered service. But you are still, as the registered nurse, ultimately responsible for the documentation and accurate recording of the care that patient received. So even though you can delegate some of these activities out, ultimate responsibility lies with you. Therefore, it says the RN shall. And this comes straight from the nursing practice law itself. I was very careful to make sure I copied it appropriately. Exceptions to these provisions. The following shall be accepted from the provisions of this chapter. The practice of nursing, which is incidental to a program of study by a student enrolled in an approved educational program of nursing, provided the practice is under the supervision of a registered nurse. So that's how nursing faculty can even allow students to give medications and do some of those treatments that require the person to be licensed in order to do it. So the law has an exception piece in there. Now, once again, there's some definitions in here that we need to review, and we're going to with that. And also it has to be an approved educational program. So that doesn't mean that somebody can just come up there and say, oh, by the way, I'm from, XYZ School of Nursing that we just threw up down on the street corner and we're coming up in your hospital. There's lots of legal things in place to prevent that from happening. And your agency's real on top of that, trust me on that. Supervision.